Welcome to Salute Your Sports. I'm Kamen Enchev here with my guys, Drew Brackett and Tom Castleman. It's the week after the one-year anniversary of our show, and we have a big show for you today. Near the end of the show, we're going to talk about our locks of the week, our betting locks of the week, a historic week last week where all three of us had winning records. We'll talk plenty on the NFL, of course, especially about some of the best teams and best young quarterbacks in the league. We'll have all that and more.
Yeah, and MLB playoffs going on as well. We're going to talk a lot of college football as things are getting a little bit more interesting. A house or two may have been lost along the way. And of course, we've got our statements of the week where we'll be touching on perhaps the biggest story in all of sports right now.
I know what you'll be talking about, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. We'll first start with our NFL overreaction segment. Common, are the Bills the best team in the NFL? Is that an overreaction or the truth?
Right now, I'll surprise you and tell you that that's the truth right now. I'm not saying that's necessarily what it's going to look like at the end of the season, but it might. I might be hopping on that Bills bandwagon. At the moment, though, they're definitely the best team. They've scored the most points, and they've allowed the least points. That is a dangerous combination. They've won all their games by 18 plus, including at Kansas City against my Chiefs. So clearly they had an off game week one against the Steelers. You give Mike Tomlin that Steelers defense time to prepare. You saw what they did in that game. But since then, it's been all Bills all the time. And really the key for them has been the improved defense. Last season, they were terrible on defense. This season, they've got a really good defense all of a sudden, and Josh Allen played like a Hall of Fame QB against the Chiefs. I know that Chiefs defense is bad, but that play at the end of the game where he hurdled over a defender, Chris Collinsworth was going crazy. I was going crazy. It was incredible. The Bills are a fantastic team. Right now, they are the best team in the NFL. I do think if the Chiefs, the Bucks, the Bills, the Chargers, the Cardinals, the Packers, the Cowboys. I mean, if all these teams play at their best, I honestly am not sure who will win. But the Bills have proven to be most consistent, and they get the number one overall seed in the AFC. They might be going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I would say if you're doing a power ranking, sure, you can put the Bills right up at number one. I bet pretty much everybody who makes a power ranking is doing so. But as far as if they're the best team, I'm going to say not definitively, not yet. I still think among the teams you mentioned, Common, the Rams and the Buccaneers out of the NFC are going to be two of the top teams that you got to put right in there. And then the Chargers as well, showing a little bit of something, coming back with a just wild, crazy game against a Cleveland Browns team that's actually pretty decent on defense. So I'm going to say that they're definitely a problem. They're definitely at the top tier. They looked really good against Kansas City in all facets of the game and are looking more and more distant from that week one loss to Pittsburgh, as that being more of a little bit of a tune-up game, a little bit of your starters aren't going full go in the preseason, so you're not your best self really heading into week one, looking at where Pittsburgh is compared to where Buffalo is, since their paths have diverged from that first week. But Buffalo pretty much played a perfect game against Kansas City, both in execution as well as game plan. There's this nice little graphic on Sunday Night Football where I think it was 7 or 8 defensive linemen are playing 20 or more snaps for Buffalo. They basically have constructed this defense as a reaction to the AFC Championship game last year, where they didn't have enough depth on the defensive line. They didn't have enough depth in the secondary. And what we saw schematically was a lot of cover two, a lot of we're going to make sure that Tyreek Hill is not going to get behind us, because Kansas City loves those, 50-yard plus touchdown bombs to Tyreek Hill. You force, an offense to play underneath. Even a player as talented as Patrick Mahomes is not going to be perfect up and down a field for every single drive. So you got to, make them do their checkdowns, make them play underneath, make them string together 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 plays without a penalty or something that gets them behind the chains a little bit. Buffalo executed well.
What do you think, Drew?
I think it is the truth. I think they are the best team in the NFL, no doubt about it, as they've just been playing so well and Josh Allen's been so good.
Yeah, I have one thing to add to Tom's point. What was really impressive about the Bills in that game was that they shut down Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. I've got the numbers here. 7 catches, 63 yards for Tyreek Hill. 6 catches, 57 yards for Travis Kelce. For a lot of players, that's a solid game, but you look at the numbers, those two guys tend to pull up. They were under their season averages. And actually, McCole Hardman was the leading receiver for the Chiefs. And I know they showed during the game at one point a graphic as to how they were marking Tyreek Hill and how they weren't letting him get down the field. No big plays. Tyreek Hill's long in that game was 17 yards, as Tom said. So they clearly had a game plan for Hill and Kelce. So, yeah, I mean, I'm very, very impressed with what the Bills are doing right now. I'm so impressed that I might have them on my locks of the week later in the show. But I'm going to go ahead and put you on the spot, Tom. And Drew, if you also want to answer this. If you had to pick one team right now, obviously, like I said, it's wide open. It's so early in the season. Injuries have to go. But if you had to mortgage your house right now on a single team winning the Super Bowl right now, who would you pick?
I like how the man who doesn't have a house is so quick and easy to just throw those about like they're, they're Monopoly pieces. He's just throwing greens left and right at all these different propositions. Nah, I can't get behind the Bills as definitively the best, simply because.
So who's your pick then? What team are you taking? Your house is on the line, Tom.
The Rams, obviously.
Yeah, probably the Rams, because the Rams have a balance of passing and running. And while the Bills have good running, a lot of that's behind Josh Allen as an individual player. I'm, relying on Devin Singletary and Moss. They're decent. But if it comes down to a game where somebody's doing to the Bills what they did to the Chiefs, taking away the 2 or 3 best things that they want to do, I don't know what the counterpunches are. We saw Kansas City didn't necessarily have a great counterpunch without a running game. So I have a similar worry to the Bills. But
I'll say this, the Rams, though, their running game is not amazing by any means either.
It's better, though. I mean, I trust Darrell Henderson to be, a better running back out of anybody in Buffalo, for example. It comes down to having a little bit more balance, I'd prefer. But the rate that they're playing, they might not necessarily need that balance.
Sure. I'm mortgaging the Chiefs, even despite all the struggles. We'll talk about that later on. But if I had to mortgage my house, I'm still taking the Chiefs. Drew, who's your mortgage team right now? Your house is on the line.
Rams.
The Rams?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay. You guys are big Rams fans. I love it. Interesting.
Well,
Drew,
what's the next question? It's about the Chargers. Will the Chargers will win the AFC West? Is that truth or overreaction?
I'm going to surprise you guys, and I'm going to say the Chargers will win the AFC West. You guys know that I'm all aboard the Chiefs. I do think the Chiefs are going to regroup. We'll talk plenty more in a little bit. But right now, you can't miss the playoffs in the first few weeks of the season, but you can lose the division title. And I think you got to take a look at where these two teams are right now. The Chiefs are 2-3. The Chargers are 4-1. But keep this in mind. The Chargers are 3-0 in the conference. They're 2-0 in the division. Kansas City is 1-3 in the conference. The Chargers already beat the Chiefs head-to-head. So let's just assume the Chiefs beat them next time they play each other, which, by the way, is no easy task. I think that's a road game for Kansas City, too, which probably doesn't matter with the Chargers, whether they're home on the road, because they don't have great fans. But nonetheless, even if the Chiefs beat the Chargers next time, they're still behind in the conference record. And, in the division record, we'll see. But they'll be at worst tied in the division record. And they've got a lot of games to make up when it comes to the conference record. And I'm not convinced who's better between the Chargers and Chiefs because I think the Chargers have a significantly better defense right now, without question. I know the Browns game, their defense didn't look good, but I think that game was more of an outlier personally. I also think they've got a better running back in Austin Eckler compared to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who struggled and is now in the IR. So I like Mahomes better than Herbert. I like the Chiefs passing game better, but I like the Chargers in pretty much every other area. So in terms of a 17-game season, given that they already have a 2-game edge on the Chiefs, basically a 3-game edge because of the tiebreakers, I actually think the Chargers are going to win this division. And I think you've seen the Broncos have been exposed. They were 3-0 because they played a really soft schedule. They've lost against the two teams they played that were decent. The Raiders have sort of, they were playing their best ball. They're back to raidering. They're very inconsistent. And of course, I know we'll talk more about John Gruden later in the show, it sounds like. But them having to switch a coach this early into the season, I'm a firm believer that players matter more than coaches, but coaching matters the most in the NFL. And it's never easy if you have to switch a coach in the season, this early in the season, completely unexpected too. Sometimes you see that your coach is struggling. You're kind of coming up with a plan B if you fire him. This kind of came out of nowhere with the Gruden news. So I still think the Chargers are going to win the division over Kansas City. But I think Kansas City, I trust them more in the playoffs because they've done it in the playoffs. If Kansas City gets in the playoffs, they're dangerous. But as far as the AFC West, give me the Chargers. They're playing some of the best ball in football right now.
Yeah, no, you laid out some pretty good logic, and kind of to keep the train going on talking about coaching here, Brandon Staley has been an absolute revelation as the head coach. As a fan, I personally like his ability to take football concepts and make them easily digestible for a laity offense. People who haven't played football before, to basically explain and kind of almost demystify a little bit some of the whole state secrets that coaches seem to regard their game plans and systems with. He lays it all out there in terms of it's no secret people want to run the football, and here's why. There's nothing really gained or lost as a strategic advantage there. So I've just liked how he's been in terms of his public speaking and talking about the game. And then also it seems like there's been a little bit of, I hesitate to use the word culture shift, but the Chargers have been chargering for how long? And we've kind of almost softly expected that a couple of times this season, but they've flipped the script. They've gone from a team that suffers heartbreaking losses to having, heart-tugging wins, basically, at the ends of games. So I think that's something that's going to be something to keep an eye on as well. We've seen previous Charger teams that start off really hot in the season kind of fizzle out toward the end. At 4-1, looking ahead, I think they have a tough game with Baltimore this week, but then they have, a little bit of a soft spot in the schedule. They could definitely be a strong contending team. I think they don't necessarily run away with the division, but I think they're firmly in the driver's seat, and it would take a reversion to a previous iteration of the Chargers franchise for them to lose that spot atop the division.
Before we get Drew's take, go ahead, Drew. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I agree. I mean, the Chargers will win the AFC West for sure.
Tom, what's that word you used at the beginning? I didn't want to cut you off, and sorry if I cut you
off there,
Drew. Laity. I've never heard that word before. What does it mean?
It's more of a religious connotation. You have like the priests and the laity, and I'm using that term of you have the football coaches and then people like us who haven't played the game before.
Did you know that word, Drew, or no?
I mean, I've heard it. I couldn't have given you a dictionary definition. Well, I come to the show.
I come to the show to learn new words from Tom Castleman. That's one of the main things I do every week, and I just learned something new. They say learn something new every day. I just learned something new. I mean, as far as the Chargers, I think, Tom, we saw the same thing that you probably saw it on SportsCenter or on Twitter, where he was talking about the running game and how it brings toughness. And I thought it was an incredible speech. I mean, he wasn't as necessarily talking about the running game, isn't just about the numbers you put up, isn't just about the play action. It's about establishing a sort of toughness. And it was very wise what he said. So we saw the same thing. And I think the Chargers are kind of similar to the Bills. I think they're the Bills of sort of last year, and their defense has improved this season as well, minus the last game, but they've learned how to win. And they did that the second half of last year. If you paid attention to the season, the last 4 or 5 games, I think they won 4 games in a row or 3 in a row, 3 of the last 4 of the last 5, something like that. They finished strong last season, and it sort of built them some momentum for this season. And they got a new coach, an improvement at coach, and just year 2 for Herbert. Austin Eckler is really good. So I love what I'm seeing from the Chargers. I think they've got a real chance to win the division. And if I was picking right now, if I was mortgaging my house, I'm still taking the Chargers to win the division. Absolutely.
All right, well, up next we have the Chiefs. Will they miss the playoffs? Overreaction or truth, Common?
Oh, absolutely not. They're not missing the playoffs. While I hyped up the Bills, I hyped up the Chargers winning the division. My main reasoning is that they already have the lead. It's a lead that it's going to be hard to blow. And actually, the AFC looks a lot worse than I would have thought a few weeks ago. If you take a look at the AFC South, that's a horrible division. The Titans are winning the division because it's a horrible division and someone has to win it. And I think they'll maybe figure things out. But we're not getting a wild card team out of the AFC South. You look at the AFC East with the Bills dominating. The Dolphins look so much worse than we would have expected. The Patriots look worse than we would have expected.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that division's not getting a wild card either. So that leaves the AFC North and the AFC West. And the odds of having two wild card teams in the AFC North are really hard to fathom, just because you look at how those teams are all pretty good and they're all going to play each other. And I think Pittsburgh offense is already a problem. Big Ben seems to have lost a step or two. Juju Smith-Schuster now going to be out for the season. That only hurts Pittsburgh more. I don't think Pittsburgh is going to make the playoffs this season. So then that probably leaves one wild card team out of the North, which is probably the Browns. But the Chiefs, by the way, already have the tiebreaker on the Browns if that ends up being a scenario, if it's not the Browns. And also, the AFC West looks way weaker than we thought a few weeks ago. I think the Raiders, I talked about it earlier, they're going to have to change a new coach. They've already lost 2 in a row. They couldn't beat our Chicago Bears. Real concerns. I know the Bears' defensive line has been pretty good this season, but as a whole, that Bears defense has not looked great this year. They looked like monsters of the Midway 1985 Bears against the Raiders. So that was concerning. I know Raiders have some injuries at running back. Carr got banged up this last week as well. So the Raiders, with the coaching change and all the issues they have, I just don't buy the Raiders being legitimate. The Broncos, we've seen the last 2 weeks when they're not playing the 3 worst teams in the NFL, what happens? They're back to reality. So I think absolutely the Chiefs are going to get at least a wild card spot. I think they come up short as far as the division, but the wild card spot is wide open. And I know they're 2 and 3. Everyone wants to freak out, but who have they lost to? They lost to the Bills, who might be the best team in the NFL. They lost to the Chargers, who are 4 and 1. We've talked about them. They lost to what was their other loss? I had it written down. The Ravens, who are also 4 and 1, and the Ravens lost their first week of the season, and they should be 5 and 0, quite frankly, if it wasn't for that Raiders game. So they've lost to the 3 best teams in the AFC right now. So those are not bad losses. Other than the Bills game, they were all close losses. Kansas City's schedule is going to get a lot easier, and we've seen how much they dominate the Raiders and the Broncos, especially the Broncos in that division. So I can see them going 4-0 in those 2 games, and I like their odds. I really do. I think Kansas City is pretty safe to get a wild card spot. I would be absolutely shocked if they don't make the playoffs. But their biggest issue is not Patrick Mahomes. I had a friend text me, has Patrick Mahomes regressed, or people starting to figure him out? I'll tell you what, no, he is not. Patrick Mahomes, by the way, is number 1 in the NFL in QBR. He has the most touchdown passes in the NFL. He has more interceptions because 2 of them were tip picks, and because he's having to force the ball down the field when they're losing some of these games. But the Chiefs lead the league in fumbles, too. So if you talk about turnovers, a lot of those are Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Brian Pringle has a couple fumbles, I think, too. Byron Pringle, I think it is. Pringle, whatever. B. Pringle. So I think
yes.
Yeah. I think the Chiefs are going to be okay on offense. I don't think they'll have that many turnovers. Their defense is a massive concern, though. That's what's going to keep them from making the Super Bowl. They've allowed the most points in the NFL right now. If that continues, they're not going to make the Super Bowl. But if their defense can even be mediocre in the playoffs, I trust Mahomes. I trust that team. If they can get to a mediocre defense, they could be back in the Super Bowl. But if they're going to be the last defense in the NFL, they're not making the Super Bowl. But I think with their offense and how good it is when they play some of these easier teams like the Eagles, where they put up five touchdowns for Mahomes, they'll do just enough to get a wild card spot. even if their defense is as bad as it is now.
Yeah, there's no hot takes here, which may be a hot take in and of itself. You mentioned the 3 conference losses, how they have the tiebreaker over Cleveland. They also have opportunities later in the year for tiebreakers over Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. So those will be very, very telling games as they match up against the AFC North. When you factor in those 4 games against Denver and Las Vegas, I say that I don't think they're a lock to miss the playoffs. I also don't think that they're a lock to make the playoffs as well. We saw it on Sunday Night Football how the Bills limited Tyreek Hill's big playability, but Chris Collinsworth was also pointing out how often Travis Kelce is getting hit off the line of scrimmage as he's starting to run his route, and when he's not allowed a free release, how that completely changes, his ability to get into his routes, the timing on those routes, which is so crucial. So I think that teams are starting to figure out, not necessarily figuring out Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback, as a talent, but I think everybody's coming to realize that when Patrick Mahomes when his feet hit the water, they touch the bottom just like all of ours do. He can't do it all by himself. So I think that we're going to see a little bit more of a challenging season for Kansas City. Is it going to be Patrick Mahomes has to throw the football, 50, 55 times every single game, especially now with Clyde Edwards-Helaire out? It's going to be Darrell Williams and his backup, I think it's Jerick McKinnon. We're kind of going far down on the depth chart here, and we saw last season what happened with Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, when he doesn't have help, he's one player against 11. He can't do it all by himself. So that's going to be the intriguing thing to see this season. Pittsburgh has a good defense. Cincinnati is at least improved in that area. So those are going to be 2 key games, not to mention those divisional games, like you said, Common. So I don't think that they're a lock to miss. I don't think they're a lock to make the way you do, though. I think there's a very real possibility that this team is going to be regressing and shocking everybody in terms of missing the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see how much they regress. I think that the Chiefs will make the playoffs. They'll get a wild card just because they're going to figure things out. I see that happening.
Yeah, and I think one thing to think about the Chiefs' offense, and I've said this before, they've got 3 unbelievable talents in Mahomes, Hill, and Kelce, but the rest of their offense is significantly worse than anyone else realizes. Like, those guys are not superstars. They don't have a legitimate, 3rd superstar target. Josh Gordon, by the way, who they're adding to the roster, he has the potential to be that, but he hasn't played in the NFL hardly the last few years. So I don't buy him as being too legitimate. I think he's going to help them, but I don't think he's a legitimate superstar at this point. I would like to see the defensive players wake up a little bit. I think the Chiefs defense is similar to the Chiefs offense. They don't necessarily have an incredible group overall, but they have a few really, really good players like Tyrann Mathieu, Frank Clark, which, by the way, that Bills game, they say the NFL is a game of inches. Like, Frank Clark got a ridiculous penalty roughing Josh Allen. It was an 11-point game. They called a horrible penalty call. I don't think the Chiefs would have come back, but it's possible. They would have gotten the ball back, get a touchdown. They're within 4 all of a sudden. That game could look a lot different. But I want to see Tyrann Mathieu step up for them. I want to see Frank Clark step up. Chris Jones gets healthy, does his thing, because they don't have a great collective off defense, but they have a lot of talented players on defense. 3 to 4 guys who can make some plays. Those guys have to step up. As far as are they going to? I'm not sure, but this Chiefs team looks very similar to the 2018 Chiefs team, but they've just played a tougher schedule. In 2018, the Chiefs didn't really have a running game. They didn't really have a very good defense. This season, the defense is even worse, quite frankly, so a worse version of that. But in 2018, it was Mahomes put up 50 touchdown passes, 5,000 yards, because he had to. And that's what he's going to have to do. It's just going to be, does he turn the ball over enough? Does he get a few plays from the defense? So we'll see. I think they're in good shape to make the playoffs. But nothing is guaranteed, Tom. You're right. They are 2-3. And something that can't be discounted, it's a physical and emotional toll to constantly go late into the season. The fact that they've played in 2 straight Super Bowls, I know there's a long off season, but that does take a toll. And that's why we see how hard it is for teams to come back and repeat the next season to make it back. And there's there's the statistics. The team that loses the Super Bowl has tended to have really bad seasons. I mean, the 49ers, granted, because of injuries last year,
Mhm.
they didn't even make the playoffs. And actually, I probably should have pulled up the statistics. I'm just thinking of it now, but a lot of the teams that have been in the Super Bowl haven't even made the playoffs the following year. I know the Panthers, I think, were 15-1 one year, lost the Super Bowl. I don't think they were in the playoffs the following season. So it's tough. It's tough. But I think because they have Mahomes and they have Andy Reid, they'll do just enough to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess we'll definitely see what happens. And a quarterback question: Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. Guys, which young quarterback would you most want on your team to start a franchise, and which one the least? In other words, rank them. What do you think, Tommy?
Yes. So first off, like Tom was, I didn't want to put Mahomes in this list because I knew we're all going to pick Mahomes. And Tom's like, well, what if I don't want to pick Mahomes? So just so you know, we don't have Mahomes in this list because I think we would all pick Mahomes. Also, Dak Prescott, I think, is a little bit older. So I didn't put him in this list. I didn't even put Lamar Jackson originally, but man, he was so impressive Monday night. We'll talk about him as well. He earned some points with me, but I still need to see that consistently. I think Joe Burrow, by the way, is probably right on this list with these guys. He just needs to get a better team, and I need to see him prove it more. These guys at this point have proven enough. For me, the best of that bunch is definitely, well, not definitely. It's very, very close between all four. Mm-hmm. 1 and 4, it's very, very tight. The fourth is close to the first. But I'm going Josh Allen just because I think he's got the strongest arm of the bunch. He can throw the ball a mile. None of these other guys have quite the arm strength that Josh Allen has. I also think he's the most durable. That's something to think about. He's the tallest, the biggest, the strongest. So if he does get hurt and he does have an injury, I think he's most likely to bounce back compared to the other three guys. And by the way, he has had the most proven success in the playoffs where it matters. I know it's a team game, but they do look at the wins for the quarterback, and he's won more playoff games than the other three guys combined on this list. So Josh Allen, to me, has to be number one. He was second in the MVP voting last season. His team might be the best team in the NFL. So I put him at number one. But from there, the next three are just about even. Number 2, I'm going to go with Kyler Murray, though, just because I think he provides the best run-pass balance. If you compare him to Herbert and Jackson, I think he's a better runner than Herbert and a better passer than Jackson. And I think he's a very good passer. He's underrated as a passer. He's actually completing 75% of his passes right now. That's actually much better than Herbert, who's at 67%. But, I mean, Justin Herbert has showed up and beaten some really good teams. He's beaten the Chiefs now this season. He beat them last year when Mahomes rested, but he's played right up there with Mahomes the last 2 seasons. So Herbert is very impressive as a second-year player. I give Kyler Murray maybe the slightest of edges just because of his quickness. And then Lamar Jackson, to me, I would have had him definitely farther behind these three guys. But right now, to me, Lamar is neck and neck with them just because he proved last night over 400 pass yards, over 80% completion percentage, 4 touchdown passes. I've been the guy calling out Lamar Jackson for his passing. He still has to do it consistently for me. I don't think he's going to do it as well as these other three guys because these guys are incredible passing quarterbacks. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, you take their legs away, just like Patrick Mahomes can, they will beat you straight from the pocket. That's how good they are as passers. Jackson is a much improved passer. If he can keep doing this consistently, yes, then I'll say he's just as good as those guys. But to me, I need to see more consistency for him as a passer. So I still put him slightly behind these guys. But Josh Allen, number 1, Kyler Murray, number 2, Justin Herbert, number 3, and Lamar Jackson, number 4 for me of that group.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to say on this particular topic is that they're all phenomenal talents.
Unbelievable. And I'll have more on that in Statement of the Week, by the way, Tom. Unbelievable.
If you look at QBR, the person who is lowest in QBR is Lamar Jackson. He's 8th in the NFL in QBR. So to say that he might be at the bottom of this list that I'm going to put out is by no means a slight toward him. For me, I prefer Justin Herbert as the number 1 because he's more of that archetypical pocket passer. Yes, Josh Allen is a big physical quarterback who can take a lot of damage, but you know who else was? Cam Newton. Cam Newton had a really high high. He also, faded pretty quickly toward the end. I mean, he's not officially retired, but he may as well be at this point. I think he threw, 9 touchdown passes last season. So not saying that's the definite way that Josh Allen's career is going to go, but there is that risk. For me, I think that Kyler Murray might be the biggest worry because of his size. He got banged up against San Francisco, and he's had several minor injuries, relatively minor injuries, where it's an ankle here, it's a shoulder there. But that's the sort of thing that can accumulate over time. And unlike Josh Allen, unlike Cam Newton, he doesn't have the big frame to go with it. I will say on Lamar Jackson, if he can just win another MVP, I think he can prove that he is a viable starting quarterback in the NFL. So if I had to rank them 1 to 4, I'd probably go Herbert, Allen, Jackson, Murray. But that's more about, long-term longevity and concern about how their careers are going to play out long-term in terms of who would I want to put on a team, who would I want to build around if there were a magical fantasy draft in real-world NFL. But they're definitely just all right there, neck and neck, right at the top.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are. I think I'd go Allen, Herbert, Murray, Jackson, I think is what I'd do. And yeah, they're all within, reach of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they're all so close. Yeah, and Drew, I honestly struggled between Herbert and Murray. I went back and forth myself. So I mean, yeah, they're all fantastic players. The NFL is in a great position with all of these talents. Again, I'll have plenty more on that during locks or not locks of the week, statement of the week. But I think it's a great group. I think it's wild to think how the game has changed because these guys, by and large, are also really good runners and they're really good passers. And it used to be that and Lamar Jackson has sort of been the image of that, like Michael Vick was. Like he's more of a running quarterback. But you look at Josh Allen and you look at Kyler Murray, even Herbert. Like Herbert doesn't run as much, but he has the ability to do that. And even Dak Prescott's a perfect example of that. They're not like a running quarterback or a passing quarterback. They're both. They're so good at both. It's truly a dual threat quarterback. Because a lot of times, dual threat quarterback used to mean that you're more of a runner who can pass. But these guys, the way these quarterbacks come up now, they can pass and run. There's nothing that determines what they're better at. And that's what I'll say about Josh Allen to you, Tom. And I'd have to pull up the stats, but Josh Allen does not run as much as Cam Newton did. Mm-hmm. That I think he has going in his favor. I think Cam Newton was exactly as I said. He was a great running quarterback that can pass. Josh Allen is a great passer who's also very good at running. Maybe not quite as good as Newton was at running, but not far off. But he's a true dual threat. He does both. And I think the fact that he does pass the ball more than Cam Newton has, I think gives him better odds not to get hurt. Because I think Cam was a runner, and specifically Cam Newton, and this is maybe where his career faltered. He was used so much as a goal line threat. He ran a lot on the goal line. He got a lot of touchdowns when he got close to the 10-yard line. I would use Cam Newton more in the open field. You get to the goal line, those are the times that maybe your quarterback shouldn't be taking a shot. So I see what you're saying there with Josh mm-hmm. Allen, but I think he is a different player to Cam Newton. I think Josh Allen, I would argue this right now, that right now, Josh Allen is better than Cam Newton ever was, even in his MVP season. If you take a look at just the strict amount of yards he's putting up passing and the arm strength and the things he can do, it's the same thing I said about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes right now, to me, is better than Brady was in his MVP seasons. And that's the thing, the point of the league is you should get better, you should evolve. I know it's different if we put these guys in different eras, but I think now the expectations is just like it is in the NBA. In the NBA, you're a small forward, power forward. You're expected to be able to knock down shots. That's something you work on from an early age. If you're an NFL quarterback, you're expected to be in the weight room. You're expected to run They're expected to be strong and fast. So these quarterbacks, in many ways, are actually better overall players than some of these other guys were in past eras. And it's impressive. I think all these guys are amazing. And even Lamar Jackson is going out there and proving me wrong. So I'm excited for that group that we have. I completely agree with you guys. They're this close. I mean, they're neck and neck for sure.
Definitely. Well, we'll move on to college, and shocking Alabama lost to Texas A&M on Saturday, tied 5th in the AP poll. Assuming they even win the SEC West, is Georgia likely there in the SEC title game? And then what are Bama's chances of making the playoff this year? Greater or less than 50%? And I know, Common, you were all over, Bama, Georgia winning out. It's like, you got to remember, man, I mean, these are college kids. These are not NFL players. And anything can happen in college. That's why it's so exciting. But you're Mr. Mortgage over there on Bama. It's like,
I'll tell you this.
On the road,
Drew Brackett, you have won that round. Drew Brackett definitely won the round. Last week, he told me Alabama and Georgia, one of them will lose for sure. He was saying there's no way they both go undefeated. I, of course, was thinking otherwise. So, Drew Brackett, take it home. You've
been spoiled lately. You just think it's easy to go undefeated over there.
Sure.
No.
You can't win them all. I mean, I'm so used to seeing Alabama went undefeated last season, obviously. I think that's what it came down to. They had won 19 games in a row. You're right. At some point, you're bound to lose. Also, Texas A&M, let's not forget they were a top 5 team in the country in the preseason rankings. I think they have the talent to beat anyone. I think they just struggled this season. I know they had an injury to their quarterback, and guess what? Their new quarterback took a few weeks to get adjusted. Well, he looked great against Alabama. So that was what was crazy. But as far as Bama very rarely loses 2 regular season games. Like, it's very, very rare. And their schedule is not extremely, but relative to the SEC, it's really easy. Arkansas is the only ranked team they play, and they play them at home. Of course, the Aggies loss was on the road. Kyle Field, one of the craziest places to play. It was their second biggest attendance ever. Over 100,000 people there. Made it a tough environment for Alabama. So I think Alabama's going to win out in the regular season. Again, they might lose. Like Drew said, it's college football, but they won't play a team with as much talent as A&M. Their best team they play is Arkansas at home. The Iron Bowl against Auburn is also a concerning game, but Auburn just doesn't look as good as they used to. I don't think they're a legitimate team this season. And they would have the tiebreaker over A&M or they wouldn't have the tiebreaker, but A&M already has 2 conference losses. So they'd have the tiebreaker on everyone else. So if Alabama wins out, they're back in the SEC title game, and which is what I think is going to happen. And I wouldn't discount Alabama beating Georgia. Nick Saban has kind of owned Georgia. That's been Georgia's big question mark. Can they get by Alabama? I know Saban lost his first game against a former assistant to Jimbo Fisher and A&M, but we haven't seen Kirby Smart beat Nick Saban yet in a game. We haven't seen Georgia beat Alabama in recent seasons. So that's a toss-up. If they beat Georgia, they're definitely in the playoff. Where it gets interesting for me, and I want to get your guys' take on this. Let's just say Alabama goes undefeated the rest of the way. They lose to Georgia, close game in the SEC title game. Can Alabama make the college football playoff as a 2-loss team, not a conference champion? I mean, what do you guys think in that scenario? Because that's where it gets interesting. Because it's obvious if they beat Georgia, they're in.
Yeah, I mean, it depends a lot on how everyone else kind of does. I think that they certainly can make it as a 2-loss team, but if somebody else or if other teams have better resumes, then they shouldn't. I mean, the committee's never put in a 2-loss team before. But I mean, this might be the year where the committee decides they want to do it, because they probably hold the same beliefs that we did heading into last week, that Alabama and Georgia are hands down the 2 most talented, the 2 best teams in the country. And even with 2 losses, the committee might say, you know what, let's bring in Alabama just because we feel like they're a better team than some of these other teams. There's a human element here to making the playoff structure as it is. So I would say that they're greater than 50% because they definitely could go out and beat Georgia. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And be, conference winner with one loss, absolutely. But making it as a 2-loss team, the only reason I'm considering it is because it's Alabama and it's the College Football Playoff Committee. Like, those are the only reasons. I mean, who doesn't think that Alabama is going to be a massive, massive draw in December and in January? The thing to look at is if you go by blind resume, they lost to an, at the time, unranked Texas A&M team. And if you're going to be putting them up as 2 losses, no conference championship against even a 1-loss Big Ten or a 1-loss Big 12 team, that's kind of a tough case to make. I know on the talent level you can, but on the merit level, on the resume level, it's a much more difficult argument to make.
I mean, it depends on where. First of all, 2 losses for Bama, I don't think they make the playoff because there are other teams that only have 1 loss, and based on merit, you just can't put them in. I don't care how much talent you have. You lost 2 games. You didn't have a good season. You can't get in the playoff. As far as, I mean, it also depends on where's Texas A&M at the end of the season. Are they ranked or not? I don't know if they'll be ranked. I'm not sure. We'll see how good they really are. It could have just been a fluke. You never know. So it's going to be about where A&M is ranked, and then, how many other 1-loss teams or undefeated teams there are, because you have to put in an undefeated team in the playoff. I don't care if it's Coastal Carolina. You have to consider it over a 2-loss Bama team. I know on paper, Alabama probably wins that game, but based on the merit of the playoff, you never know.
So I will say this: thank goodness that there is people doing this now, not computers and the BCS, because I am a believer in the eye test and I'm a believer in justice. And I think there should be justice for Alabama. Now, they lose to Georgia by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, then okay, throw it out. But they lose a 1-score game against Georgia in the SEC title game, assuming they roll the rest of the way, assuming there isn't an undefeated Big 10 or Big 12 team. Because if there's an undefeated Big 10, Big 12 team, that does change things, of course. But Coastal Carolina, and we'll get into these teams later, San Diego State, like some of these teams with really, really bad schedules, come on. Coastal Carolina is not beating Alabama. I don't care if Alabama has 2 losses and Coastal Carolina has 0. That's ridiculous. Alabama's clearly better than Coastal Carolina. And I think Alabama, to me, and first off, here's the thing that I think is going to happen. And I kind of said this. I think there's going to be all sorts of chaos. We're not going to have an undefeated Big Ten team. We're not going to have an undefeated Big Ten team as well. And it's possible that the Big Ten and Big 12 representative may actually have 2 losses themselves. Then that makes it easy for the committee. But it'll be interesting if we do have a 1-loss Big 10 or Big 12 champion versus a 2-loss Alabama. That's going to be really, really close. And I'll tell you this, it'll probably depend on who the team is. Because if it's Ohio State, they might put Ohio State over Alabama. But if it's Iowa or Penn State, then they'll probably put in Alabama, as Tom says, the optics and the draws. So it's same thing out of the Big 12. Whether it's Oklahoma State compared to Oklahoma, that makes a massive difference too. To me, I am going to lean that somehow, some way, Alabama's going to find a way to get in, even if they lose the Georgia game. I just think they're such a great team that they're definitely, to me, still a top 2 team in the country. I mean, I'm not going to give it, I know, say one game. I mean, they were down at the half. They played well the second half. 2 quarters of football, to me, is not going to tell me that team is not one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country. Now, obviously, it remains to be seen what happens the rest of the season. But I'm picking Alabama. I really think that they're clearly a top 4 team in the country. You can't tell me that even if they have 2 losses, they lose a close game against Georgia. You can't tell me some of these other teams are better. I mean, this is why
I'm not saying they're better, but I'm saying that if an Oregon, a 12-1 Oregon team, or 11-1 Oregon team who won the Pac-12 championship, you have to put them in.
No, you don't. That's the whole point. You don't have to. the committee's job, they have one responsibility. Forget the resumes. They have one responsibility. That is put the 4 best teams there are in college football in the playoffs. That is why they're there. That's the point of their existence.
Yeah, but otherwise, you can't just toss away the Texas A&M game. You can't just toss that one away.
If we were just doing resumes, we might as well have the BCS computers pick the top 4 teams. Let's have the computers pick the top 4 teams.
But you're just forgetting about the Texas A&M game. I mean, they lost that game.
One game doesn't
Texas
decide
A&M's
the season,
not very good.
It's the season as a whole. It's the season as a whole.
Well, we'll see. But you're saying they lose again, I guess, to Georgia in the SEC championship.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you have
who else hasn't lost to Georgia, though? Georgia's beating everyone. Georgia's dominant.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
Like to me, it almost counts as you had one loss.
But then what's the value in the regular season? What's the value? Why are we playing the regular season if Alabama loses to Texas A&M on a fluke? Why are we playing it? If we know, if they have 2 losses, they're going to be in the playoff no matter what, then what's the point of the regular season?
Well, the point is for us to have discussions
I mean, of course they have the most talent. Of course, they're the number 1 number 1 recruiting class every year. Of course they have the most talent, but are they the best team?
It's not just talent, though. They deliver. Texas has talent every year, and Texas clearly, year in, year out, is not a top 5 team in the country. Alabama, year in, year out, is top 4 team in the country.
Well, yeah, but you can't go past years. This is a different Alabama team.
And this Alabama team smoked Ole Miss. They didn't look as great against Florida, but that was a road win against Florida. Like, they're beating everyone up that they've played. They shellacked Miami. I mean, that's my whole point. We're looking at the whole season as a whole. Like, one loss does not define your whole season. And the argument would be made, like, it's the same concept. Like, okay, so let's throw in Michigan or whoever, Ohio State, whoever, Iowa, whoever plays in the Big Ten title game. If we're going to look at their regular season, right, one loss Big Ten champ. How much does the Big Ten championship matter? Because, like, that team is probably not going to have one loss in the regular season, just like Alabama did. So I'll say Alabama had a better regular season. I'm more impressed if you play Georgia close compared to you beat Iowa or you beat Ohio State close. I'm more impressed if you play Georgia close, because Georgia hasn't played a close game all year. Georgia's beaten teams by 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns every game. Like, it's not always about wins and losses. Like, it's about, like, just the strength of all your performances, who you played, and taking a look at everything all together. Because I would argue with you that a close loss against Georgia is something to be proud of. Like, the committee's job isn't just to look at wins and losses and resume. They're supposed to look at who they think is the best team overall, the best 4 teams overall. I mean, there's no way Alabama's not a top 4 team in the country. When the season ends, they'll be top 4.
If you ask Nick Saban if he was proud of, if he's is proud of losing to Georgia close, he's not gonna say that. No, I mean, Georgia and Alabama are very close. We know that, but
so if they're very close, then why is Alabama not going to be in one of the top 4 teams?
But if you have a 1-loss Big 12 champion, a 1-loss Pac-12 champion, a 1-loss Big 12 champion, there's
putting
your
Alabama in. Absolutely.
With
the
2
only
losses,
scenario,
I
only scenario that I wouldn't put Alabama in, that I can maybe sort of buy your argument, would be if we had undefeated Big 10 and undefeated Big 12. Then that would make it hard for Alabama. But if those big
that would make it difficult.
I mean, I think we probably will. I mean, the Big 10, Iowa's undefeated, Michigan's undefeated, Michigan State's undefeated. You know, one of those 3 teams could go undefeated.
All those teams play each other, except for Iowa will play someone in the Big 10 title game. But Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State, all these teams play each other. So there's no way those teams will be undefeated. The Big Ten's only hope is for Iowa, who plays in the weaker division, to go undefeated, and then for them to get lucky in the conference championship game. Maybe Ohio State or Penn State has an injury. Because Iowa, by the way, wouldn't be undefeated. Iowa was going to lose that game to Penn State if Penn State's starting quarterback, Clifford, doesn't go down in the second quarter. Penn State was winning the game. Iowa was lucky to win that game.
They played well in the second half. They played well in the second half.
Yeah, against Penn State's backup quarterback. Absolutely.
Well, one could also
against
argue
Penn State's backup quarterback.
Alabama lost to Texas A&M's backup quarterback. Alabama's playing with no injuries. I mean, there's no excuse to lose that game. Zero. You're favored by, 17 and a half or 18 points?
18.
I mean, I don't know. You got to place value
I might have
on
placed
the regular season.
I might have placed a 6-way parlay for $25 that paid out to $1,083. I hit the first 5 legs, and Alabama was the 6th, so I would know.
The point is,
you should take it up with DraftKings that shouldn't count because Alabama is definitely the more talented team anyway. The in-season result doesn't matter.
I'll let them know. Paging DraftKings, give my money back.
Point is, the regular season needs to have some emphasis. And yes, one game like that does matter. And because of course, every year we could come out with the top 4 teams on paper. But then why play the season?
I'm just talking about the season as a whole, what you did on the field as a whole, because playing a Georgia team tough is an accomplishment because no one else has played Georgia tough. But I mean,
Georgia could very well lose.
They could, and that makes it easy for Alabama. But my thought is that the committee's job is to pick the best 4 teams. I actually will do it the other way. I know you guys talk about the resume, a blind resume. I would throw out the resume, watch every second of every game that all these teams played, and then tell me that Alabama's not top 4 if you just don't factor in this loss that happens. You lose. It happens once in a while.
I mean, but then you're not comparing apples to apples, right? If you're comparing different conferences and different teams,
have you played that board game? Apples to apples? Oh, it's so good. So good. Did I beat you in Jenga the one time we played in Arkansas? Do you remember we played Jenga?
I don't know who won.
I love Jenga. I can't remember who won our Jenga showdown. Well, it looks like we clearly disagree on this topic.
We clearly disagree.
We might be revisiting this because this literally might be a very realistic scenario in a few months from now.
Yeah, well, my narrative could change in a few months based on records, and right now a lot can happen.
And that's part of why I do like Alabama better than 50%, just because. I keep saying this, but I think there's just going to be a lot of losses. I have a feeling that the Big 10, Big 12, maybe not the Big 10, but probably the Big 10 too. Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12 champions, I think are probably, if not all, at least 2 of those 3 are going to have 2 losses. I think those Big 10 teams are going to beat up on each other. They play each other so much. It's crazy. Iowa's the one that's in a good position. But Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, they all play each other. And we'll have that in the next segment here. But they're going to beat each other up. 2 losses. Look for all those teams to get 2 losses. That's what I think. And Oregon is not a great team. Oregon's going to pick up a second loss too. Wait, you watch. And Oklahoma, they'll pick up probably 2 losses. At least one. Oklahoma State, they might pick up a couple of losses. Just wait. The losses are coming for everyone. Losses are coming.
Well, you better hope for losses if you want Alabama in the playoff.
I will, because I want the 4 best teams in regardless.
Moving on. Michigan, Michigan State, Kentucky, Oklahoma State, Coastal Carolina, Wake Forest, SMU, San Diego State, all top 25 undefeated teams. Which one has the best shot of making the playoff?
Yeah, so first off, I'm completely going to throw out – I put these in just because I wanted to give the schools credit and I wanted to – see you guys give them love. But Coastal Carolina, San Diego State, horrendous schedule. I looked at it. SMU, they're playing Cincinnati. They're not beating Cincinnati. Forget about it. So I'm going to throw out all those mid-major schools. And then I look at Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State. Michigan plays Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State. Michigan does not pass the ball well enough to beat those teams. They have a great running game and a great defense. That gets the job done against solid teams. You play teams that can put up points, it's not going to happen for Michigan. Michigan State, who do they play? Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. Like I told you, those teams are all going to beat up on each other. So I don't think any of those teams are making it. Iowa has a decent chance out of the Big Ten. just because Iowa plays in the weaker division and they already beat Penn State, although, again, because of injury. Ohio State, I think, is probably the best team in the Big Ten, period. So they're the one that would be most likely to make it out of the Big Ten. But as far as the teams we just listed, undefeated teams that are ranked, anywhere from 8 to 25, Michigan State, I'm not buying them. SMU, they're not beating Cincinnati. Coastal, SDSU don't have easy schedules. I think Kentucky plays at Georgia this week. Obviously, if they win, Kentucky can do it. But they've barely beaten some teams that they should have beaten by more, like Mizzou, for example. So I think Kentucky's going to lose to Georgia. They're not going to make the SEC East championship. And without getting a chance to play for that championship, Kentucky's not realistic. Maybe if they hosted Georgia, but I don't see them. Wake Forest, they won by 3 points the last 2 weeks. I just don't buy Wake Forest being for real. They still play at Clemson, at North Carolina. Those are two teams that have been the two most underachieving teams in college football. I think they can both beat Wake Forest. Also, they play NC State, who's really good. The team that has the best chance is Oklahoma State, hands down of that bunch. Oklahoma State is 5-0. They're ranked number 12 in the country. They play at Texas next week. If they win that game, the chances of them making the playoffs become really big because they host Oklahoma the last game of the season. So Oklahoma State would be the one team to watch that could throw all sorts of wrenches into the playoff system. But I'll tell you this, I don't know that they will because I don't know that they're good enough. They barely beat Tulsa. They barely beat Boise State. They barely just beat Baylor. Like at some point, those close losses or close wins are going to turn into close losses, which is what I expect from Oklahoma as well. So as far as do I think any of these teams have greater than 50% chance to make the playoff, I don't think any of them has the greater than 50% chance. But the one that I would look out for is Oklahoma State.
Yeah, you laid a really compelling argument there for the Cowpokes. I think OK State, they control their destiny the most out of any of the teams that you listed. But I mean, it's certainly a clear and easy path for a Michigan or a Michigan State to make it into the playoff.
Win those games.
Win those games and close out. I mean, these are all games where we assume that everybody's just kind of going to go like 1-1 round robin against each other. But, whether it's injury or whether it's just the continued development of, young quarterbacks, something along those lines, some of these teams could easily pop up and definitely be there at the end. And as you mentioned, obviously the mid-majors, nice stories and everything, but they're too small to get in, especially when the committee already has Cincinnati right now at, I think it's third in the country, and certainly no signs of the Bearcats, no sign of the Bearcats faltering or anything along those lines. So they're more or less a lock to make it into the playoff. Wake Forest, I think they're actually second. I'd go Oklahoma State followed by Wake Forest, just because while they haven't necessarily won by a ton of points the past couple of weeks, they still definitely can go out and beat, a good but flawed NC State team, a good but flawed Clemson team. Not saying it's going to happen, but undefeated ACC champion, that's something that we have not addressed with any of the prior conversations on this show. I mean, even though they're not on paper a better team than, say, an Alabama or an Ohio State, on merit, you go undefeated in the ACC. Even if it's in a down year, you're going to be in.
Yeah, we lost you at the very end there, Tom, but I was showing my paper. It's not played on this. I agree with that much. Drew?
Well, it's interesting you talk about Oklahoma State because according to ESPN's College Football Power Index, Oklahoma State right now at this time has a, let's see. I mean, I lost them. They have like a 3%. No. They have like a 0.1% chance to make the playoff,
wow.
Which is incredible.
That's because they think they're going to lose to Texas and Oklahoma because they're the underdog in both of those games. Obviously,
yeah, I mean they play at Texas, at Iowa State, at West Virginia, at Texas Tech, and then against Oklahoma. That's a
lot of road
stretch.
Games.
Lot of road games.
Iowa State's terrible this year.
Now, what's interesting. It's on the road. You just never know. What's
Fair.
interesting is Michigan has a 40% chance to make the playoff. So I don't remember what I think Michigan was in our original question.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think you give the edge to Michigan, who has the best shot.
I'm looking at my phone right now. I've got it pulled up. So if you see me looking down, Michigan plays at Michigan State. They play at Penn State, and they do host Ohio State. But man, it's like they'd have to. I mean, if they go, like Tom said, yeah, they could go 3-0, but it's very, very unlikely. I don't know where ESPN is getting those numbers, but I just don't love Michigan. I did watch some of the Michigan Nebraska game. Michigan looked to be in control. Nebraska made it really, really close. Michigan getting the win late. I know that was a road game too. Drew will be quick to point out, but Michigan does not have a quarterback. Let me pull up their stats right now. Let's see what their stats are. I'll do it on my phone, not the computer. I mean, they just don't have any semblance of a passing game. Let's see. McNamara is their quarterback. He has 986 pass yards. What is that, over 5 games? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's less than 200 yards a game. He has 5 touchdown passes. Like 6-0, actually. That's over 6 games. Holy cow. So, I mean, this guy is like getting well under 200 yards a game. Like, how are you going to beat like Ohio State if you can't get more than 200 pass yards a game? I don't see it. Like Michigan, like you're looking at what Michigan's done is they just haven't played anyone good. I mean, Rutgers is bad. Northern Illinois is bad. Washington's bad. They lost like a non-conference game or a home game to an FCS team. Wisconsin's a joke. We thought Wisconsin was good. Wisconsin's terrible. So, I mean, I don't think Michigan has played anybody. They're ranked number 9 because they're Michigan, or number 8 or whatever, and they play in the Big Ten. That's why they're ranked number 8. They're probably not the 8th best team in the country. I don't see it.
I mean, we don't know yet. We don't know.
We'll find out.
I know you're saying these stats or whatever, but I mean, if they win in East Lansing and then win against Penn State at Penn State, I mean, they're very well a top 4 team.
The Michigan State game, they can win, but I don't see them winning at Penn State. Although I got to look up Clifford's injury update, how long Penn State's starter is supposed to be out for, if he'll be back for that game. But winning at Penn State, talk about a road game. That's a hard road game to win. Just ask Auburn. Penn State's one of the toughest places to play. One of the best atmospheres. I think Kirk Herbstreit said it was the best atmosphere in college football. I don't see how they're going to go in there and win, but we'll see. We'll see. They play the game on the field, not on paper, as we like to say.
Also, watch out for the Iron Bowl this year. I know you said Auburn's down, but that one's on the Plains. I mean, that's a tough game for Bama.
We'll see.
Auburn, I think, is trending up. I mean,
okay.
You know, I think they have a huge test this weekend against a I don't know who they play, ranked team on the road at Arkansas. That's a winnable game. You get them at noon.
Woo pig.
You get them at noon instead of a night game in Fayetteville. Ooh, that's.
I'm taking the Hogs in that game. Woo pig.
That's a toss-up game if I've ever seen
Pittman, it. Barry Odom. Let's go. Woo pig.
Well, you never know. If things break the right way for Auburn, they could very well be ranked in the top 15 by the time they get to Bama.
Not if they don't beat Arkansas. That ain't gonna happen.
Correct.
Give me Arkansas. Arkansas, Ole Miss, by the way, had one of the best college games. It was crazy. Like, it was back and forth. I think it ended 52-51. It reminded me of when they played each other in 2015, I think it was, where Hunter Henry, you guys might remember him, the NFL player, he threw one backwards to Alex Collins. Like, it was like 4th and 25. He threw the ball like 25 yards backwards, and Alex Collins went like 35 yards forwards, picked up a first down. They forced overtime against Auburn, and then they beat them in the overtime. Just an insane game. That 2015 Arkansas team had some insane games. They also lost a heartbreaker to Dak Prescott at Mississippi State. But I don't know. It'll be close. It'll be interesting. I think college football is wide open this year. I expect a lot of losses for all these teams because I don't think any of these teams really stand out. So I look for all of them to lose except for Georgia.
And that's fair. We'll see where the dice falls. I mean, or the dominoes fall, I should say. But
nice.
It'll be interesting.
And that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Sure. We'll move on to baseball. I'll go into my hibernation during baseball here. Let's see here. Do we like Red Sox won last night, advanced to the ALCS? You like them to upset in the next round?
Yeah. So, Tom, let me pull out the final score here. 10-1 Astros.
10-1 Astros.
So our Chicago White Sox, the Chicago guys here, are toast. I did pick the Astros, by the way, to make the World Series. I picked them to beat the Sox. Tom went homer. Drew just copied Tom. So I did think the Astros were the real deal because they have that playoff experience with Correa, Altuve. They've got an incredible lineup. And I felt the White Sox just weren't quite ready to play a team like that and win. I didn't think they would be getting shellacked 10-1, and can't remember what one of the other games was, but they got dominated this series.
I'm surprised they won, though.
Oh, yeah. They couldn't give signals and pound the trash cans. Yeah, I don't know. Here's my thought as far as the Red Sox. By the way, what an incredible upset over the Rays. That was a nuts upset. They were the underdog in the wild card game. I know in baseball anything can happen, but they beat the Red Sox good. They beat them in 4 games in that series. But long term, the second round is going to be 7 games, not 5 games. So it gets a little bit harder. And I think Boston, their lineup was on fire against the Rays. But they don't have enough pitching to win consistently. They have to be on fire again to win. Boston was 15th in ERA in the regular season this season. Not a great pitching team, very average pitching team. They won because of the bats against the Rays. They won because of the bats, period. Houston has a much better pitching staff, and they have even better bats. So I think I'd be shocked if the Red Sox beat Houston, but it is the year of the upsets, and you never know. Boston's been surprising us all season long. They were kind of that team that it's like, what? How did they get to 90-something wins? How did they get this far? So you never know.
Yeah, no, I like Houston as well. And, as we talked about this baseball season, as we got in August and September, getting close to the playoffs, it's who's the biggest threat out of the American League. As a Sox fan, I always looked at Houston as being that most dangerous team for the White Sox to get matched up with. And of course, that's who they're facing in the first round of the playoffs, giving up no fewer than 6 runs per game, which is a testament to how off the Sox pitching was, but also how good Houston's lineup is. And the thing that was really frustrating to watch in the series from a fan perspective is how good Houston's defense was the entire series. White Sox had a lot of hard hit balls throughout these 4 games, and a lot of times it was ending up in the Houston Astro player's glove. They are exceptionally well coached and positioned, and they just have a good natural talent on defense, which is something we don't really talk about a whole lot in baseball because it's not as easily quantifiable as it is in, say, basketball or in football. But defense matters a great, great deal in terms of being able to limit a team from stringing together a lot of hits when a home run ball isn't really working for you. The other thing Houston does really well is they don't strike out a whole lot. And so on the flip side, while they have a really good defense, they will put your defense under a tremendous amount of pressure because they're going to make their outs in the field. It's not as easy. There are no errors on a strikeout. You can have an error on a ground ball to shortstop or third base, a funny hop here, all those different baseball cliches. So quite frankly, I guess no, I don't see the Red Sox as being able to pull off the upset, given that I've spent the entire segment talking about the Houston Astros. I think that they are the most talented team in the American League. I was hopeful that the White Sox might be able to catch a little bit of lightning in a bottle, but pretty much from game 1, watching what they did to Lance Lynn and watching how they were able to limit the White Sox offense, I wasn't terribly confident after that. Sox managed to win a wild one in game 3 on Sunday night. That was a fantastic game, but what was an issue in that game? The White Sox found themselves down 5-1 in the third inning. So if the starting pitching is not up to par, and I certainly don't think that it is in Boston, Houston's going to be able to roll pretty easily.
Yeah, I think Houston wins that series against the Red Sox as well.
Yeah, real quick final note on Houston before Drew asks us the next question, which I'll kind of echo what Tom is saying about this next series as well. But I'll tell you this, I think for Houston, it was impressive what they did against the White Sox because the White Sox starters were really good this year. And I did not see them jumping on them to the extent that they did. I think Lance Lynn, and I know he's a fastball pitcher, but I saw a crazy statistic that Lance Lynn threw like a higher percentage of his pitches were fastballs than like any starter in the last like 3-4 years. It was one of the most like all time like playoff history. Like if that's your go-to pitch, and I'm sure he tosses it differently. He probably cuts it differently to mix it up a little bit, but all in all, it's still a fastball. So like Lance Lynn definitely should have tried mixing it up, throwing some off-speed stuff against a lineup like Houston because they knew it was coming. They knew the fastball was coming. They didn't need to cheat to know that, and they still hit it. So props to Houston. Yeah, I agree. They're the most talented team. They've got the most experience in the American League, if not the whole league in the playoffs. So I've got them making the World Series.
Will the Dodgers come back against the Giants?
I'm so split. So this is what I was going to say about this, Tom. We're talking about defense. The Giants' defense is phenomenal, too. The Giants, I actually turned on the end of the game last night, got home from work, got done watching that crazy Ravens comeback, and then I flipped on baseball at the end, and I flipped it on literally right in time to see that catch live on TV. Mookie Betts hits the ball to short. Brandon Crawford goes like Air Jordan, Michael Jordan, and makes the snag at short. It was incredible. And then I just saw the highlights of the game, and there was a few other really nice defensive plays the Giants made. That's a team that plays great defense. Talk about defense. The Royals in 2015, when they won the World Series, I think it was 2015, won it on, in large part, the backs of their defense, too. So defense does matter, and it isn't quantified. This series is crazy. It's so hard to predict because I think these are the two best teams in baseball. They had the most wins. The Giants had one more win in the regular season over the Dodgers, and that's because they had one more win head-to-head. So they had the exact same record against the rest of baseball. The Giants had one more win head-to-head. I think that if the Dodgers were healthy, this would be an easy question. I think if the Dodgers were fully healthy, they would have had the best record in baseball. My gut feeling, though, tells me that the Dodgers are going to come back and win this series. I'm solely basing this on the fact that they have more guys who've been there the last few years. They just won the World Series last year. A lot of those guys are still there. The Giants, I know they have like our guy, Chris Bryant, or my guy, Chris Bryant in Chicago. He's done it in the playoffs before, but a lot of their team and a lot of their players haven't been in the playoffs. They don't have that same type of experience and pedigree. So I'm just basing it on what LA has done in the playoffs in recent years. I just have a feeling with them, but I think it's one of those where it's like 50.1 to 49.9. I think the Giants being ahead 2-1 does help them, but I'll have more on this in Locks of the Week. I have a feeling the Dodgers definitely win tonight because these two teams are too close for it not to go to 5 games.
Yeah, it really comes down to can the Dodgers, get their bats to wake up a little bit because, we look at how the series has gone. The Giants have won both games in a shutout fashion, 4-0 and 1-0, and then their one loss to the Dodgers, the score was 9-2. So the Giants are the type of team that has the level of firepower to win a slugfest type of game, especially with Brandon Belt injured. So it really comes down to, pitching execution and then the manager in terms of how are they going to manage this game, work the bullpen to keep the Dodgers who have, even with injuries, they still have Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, Trey Turner at the top of a lineup. That's insane. That we haven't even talked about Max Muncy, who's not starting tonight. Bellinger has had an off season, has been dealing with injuries. I mean, there's the catcher, Will Smith, and I have to say the catcher, not the actor, just because that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Sure.
I'm going to go with the Giants just because I have a little bit more confidence in their pitching than I do in the Dodgers bats. And it's off of a very small sample of this postseason. The Dodgers have actually scored, let me do the quick math. They've actually scored more runs in this series than the Giants have, but it all came in one game. I think the Giants, if not tonight, it's going to be tough going up against Walker Buehler on a short rest. But the Giants just have to win 1 out of 2. The Dodgers have all the pressure on them. I'm going to take the Giants to close out the series at some point.
Yeah. By the way, I'm really looking forward to that Will Smith movie where he's Serena Williams and Venus Williams' dad. Have you seen the previews for that?
I have not. I didn't even know that was in production.
Oh, it's coming out in November. I'm so pumped. I'm just like, let's go. Richard King, I think his name is, their father. And I'm really, really looking forward to that movie. Will Smith is a fantastic actor. The catcher is also very good. Not quite on that level. But I have a quick question for you, Tom, because we're going opposite. And then I guess we'll ask Drew what he's going with. Did you watch any of the Sox game today? Did you watch the broadcast? I don't know if you listened on the radio or what you did. Because I watched some of it. I was going to the vet at one point. I went to the vet at the right time because it got ugly at that point. But I was watching the beginning of it. And I think AJ Pierzynski was in the booth, former White Sox. I think Adam Dunn was also in the booth. I think they had a lot of White Sox guys in the booth that game. But AJ Pierzynski said that he thought that Dusty Baker was a Hall of Fame manager. Do you agree?
Sure.
I agree also.
He hasn't won a World Series, but it's the same thing as, is Andy Reid a Hall of Fame manager without that Super Bowl in Kansas City? I think, sustained success throughout regular seasons and deep postseason success, even if he hasn't necessarily won the big one yet. I'd say he's a Hall of Famer.
I think so too. I think Dusty's been a great manager. I thought Dusty getting booted out of Chicago in 2003 was an injustice. It was on the same level of Lovie Smith getting booted out 2 years later in Chicago. And yet we still keep Matt Nagy, who doesn't have near the pedigree or success as those two coaches when they got let go of. But that's a story for another day. I love the toothpick with Dusty Baker. I just was watching that and I was like, I probably agree was my thought on that.
Well, also you got to factor in his playing career as well. Just on a whim, I'm pulling up his baseball reference page. 37 wins above replacement, hit 242 career home runs. Certainly not nothing to scoff at when you combine that with him being a really, really good manager. 116 OPS plus. Not bad.
Drew, who do you got in that Dodgers-Giants series?
I'll take the Giants to win the series, no doubt about it. If they don't win tonight, they'll win tomorrow night.
I'm wearing my Dodger blue. Let's go. Dodger blue.
Locks of the week. Recap comment. Let's hear
Locks of the week. What a week for the show. Let's go. Let's go. Really, really good week for everyone. I think Drew and Tom both went 3-1-1. Or did we give
think
different?
Or you know?
Did.
So, okay. Well, because I remember there was a couple games where we were changing different lines, and I wasn't sure if it was one of those, but I think so. So where you guys tied, I'll start with the draw. Tom had Packers -3. Drew had Bengals +3. So you guys got a tie there. The Packers winning by 3. One of the wildest NFL games that is around.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have thought there was high school kickers out there. I think both teams, the kickers missed 3 kicks. And it was they both missed 2 game-winning kicks. I think, to be fair, I think one of them for each kicker was super, super long. But still, it's NFL kickers. You don't expect to see 4 game-winning kicks in a row missed. Mason Crosby finally making it an overtime. Packers winning 25-22. So you guys washed there. And then 3-1-1. Drew, we'll start with you. You had Netherlands, Latvia under 3.5 goals. You got that pick in after I told you that the English Premier League pick you made was actually for this week because it was in the international soccer break. So I'm glad I caught that. Netherlands winning 1-0, only 1 goal instead of 4 in that one. You had the Bills +3 versus the Chiefs. You were easily correct. The Bills winning 38-20. You had the Steelers -1 over the Broncos. That was correct. Steelers winning 27-19. Then you had Panthers -4 over the Eagles. Got that one wrong. Eagles winning 21-18. A crazy rally. That one looked like another one that you might hit early on. Tom, you drew that Packers game. You missed the Pats -9 over the Texans. They won 25-22. Chargers -1.5 over the Browns. A crazy rally got you that win. Mm-hmm. Speaking of crazy games, 47-42. My girlfriend had Justin Herbert on her fantasy team. She had Austin Eckler on her fantasy team. They killed it for her. She's a big Chargers fan. I had, of course, Mike Williams. Finally got myself a fantasy win. How about that? Drew Brackett had Lamar Jackson, by the way. What a crazy week for him and Josh Allen. Big-time fantasy weeks all around. And then Titans -4 over the Jaguars. Tom got that one right easily. Mm-hmm. 37-19. Bills over 27.5 points against the Chiefs. Got that easily. They scored 38. So you guys were 3-1-1. Both of you had winning records. I continued my win one, lose one week. I go over 500 one week and I go under 500 the next. So this was my over 500 week. I went 3-2. I missed the Chiefs game. I'm done talking about that garbage. Chiefs downplayed me. But I also did hit the over in that game. Chiefs Bills over 56.5, 58 total points. Rams Seahawks under 54. Got that one right easily. 43 points in that one. And then I had Argentina Paraguay over 2.5 goals. It was 0-0, so missed that one. Ugh. And Dodgers Cardinals under 7.5. Dodgers winning 3-1, so 4 runs in that game. I was 3-2 on the week. So winning week for all of us. Drew Brackett still leading the standings at 15-8-2. Tom in second, followed by me. But we're pretty Tom and I are somewhat bunched up. Drew's still a good way ahead, for sure, in the standings. So let's see if we can catch up against them. Drew, what do you have this week?
Yeah, I'll look forward to extending my league. We'll start with English Premier League on Sunday. Everton versus West Ham United, under 2.5 goals in that contest.
There you go, the pick from last week.
Was it? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Well, I like that line a lot, I guess, because I totally forgot. Let's see here. NFL for Sunday, I'll take the Lions +3 over the Bengals.
Really?
I'll take the Browns -2.5 over the Cardinals.
Wow.
Giants versus Rams under 47.5 in that contest. And then Vikings Panthers under 46.
Wow. But it's funny that the first two lines that you looked at, like, especially like wow. I don't have either of those, but I probably disagree with them. So that's interesting. I do definitely agree with all of your unders. I feel really good. Like the Giants, like, don't have any players to play. Like, how are they even going to put up points? Their whole team is injured. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I might take that under and shop it somewhere else, because that sounds like a great pick for sure. I don't know about your game lines though, Tom. What do you have?
So this is probably for Drew's benefit. I have on Bovada Bengals -3.5 over the Lions. That's what I listed it at. So do we want to do it where we each get the more favorable line, or do we want to just call it 3 across the board, 3.5 across the board? How do we want to call it? Because I have Bengals. I'm opposite Drew yet again.
And last week you guys washed on that. So that's so funny.
We'll do 3. We'll do 3.
We'll do 3? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll open up the possibility for a wash.
Okay.
Most gracious of you. I'll take Cowboys -4.5 over the Patriots. As much as it pains me, give me the Packers -4.5 over the Bears. I'll take Chargers +3 against Baltimore. I'm really liking LA. And then Buffalo Bills overs have been working for me. So give me the Bills scoring over 30.5 points against the Titans. I'm not sure about the game over because I don't know how well they're going to do against Derrick Henry and the Titans, but I think that they'll at least put up points against Tennessee. So I think that's 5 for me, correct?
That's 5. So a couple of things. First off, do you guys remember that I told you after week 1, my neighbor's brother bet $1,000 on the Bills over 12 wins, and I was laughing after week 1. Well, that pick is looking great right now. Mm-hmm. So my neighbor's brother looking good with this $1,000 bet on the Bills over 12 wins. Tom, it is actually kind of mind-blowing how Tom and I tend to think alike on a lot of our picks. I actually don't have any of your picks, but I had like 6 NFL lines written down, and I chose 3, and I left the other 3 out. Ironically, the 3 I left out was all of the line picks.
Really?
I had,
oh, wow.
And my reasoning for the Bears one was strictly because I just want to cheer for a Bears upset. And the Bears beating the Packers is one of the coolest
I'll
things.
happily take a loss on locks of the week for that one.
Sure, but
not for a cover, for an outright win. A cover is just going to drive me up the wall. So we've got a 5-point margin to play with here.
Sure, absolutely. Well, so anyways, my thinking was I just eliminated that one just because I want to cheer for the Bears. I was like, I know like I won betting against them earlier, but they're almost giving me some sort of hope with their most recent performance. So I'm just like, I'm going to stay away from the Bears game. But for the record, I do agree with you on it. And then I also had that the Cowboys-Patriots one, I'm almost regretting not picking. Of your 3, the 3 that you said, like the game lines, not the over-unders, that one sounds pretty good. But then I was just like, well, the Patriots showed up against the Bucs. So I was like, I don't know. And then the Chargers-Ravens game, there's something that drew me to that game. Because originally I wanted to pick Chargers +3, but then I looked at the over, and I was like, well, I don't want to double down on the same game. I actually feel better about the over on the game than I do the Chargers +3. So I have Chargers-Ravens over 51.5 points. Ravens are 29th out of 32 in pass defense in the NFL. Chargers are 7th in pass offense. So not a very good matchup for the Ravens defense. And then you flip it the other way. Chargers are last in rush defense in the NFL. Ravens are 4th in rush offense. So neither defense matches up well with the opponent's offense. Both teams are top 10 offenses in the NFL in both points and yards. They both have those 2 great young quarterbacks we talked about earlier. Chargers get about 28 points a game. Ravens about 27 a game. So both teams getting their average points gets us above the total. We saw the Chargers recently in a 47-42 game. The Ravens in a 31-25 game. We've got 2 great offenses against 2 average defenses. So look for a lot of points in this game. Over 51.5. I feel great. Then there was 2 separate bets. I also looked at this next game. I looked at the over, but I decided to go with the line. So I had a really bad luck picking for the Chiefs. They have not done me well in locks of the week. And then I was going to pick them last week against the Eagles, and I solely backed out, or 2 weeks ago rather, on the basis that they didn't win for me against the Ravens. So this week, I'm not going to pull another one where I back out because of a bad result the previous week. So give me Chiefs -6.5 at Washington. The Chiefs defense has been terrible this year, but Washington's a pretty average offense. So that's not a bad matchup against them. They're not going up against the Ravens, the Chargers, some of these great offenses. And Washington is 27th against the pass in the NFL. That's not a good pass defense. We know how good the Chiefs can pass. And by the way, Chiefs are last in points allowed. Washington is second to last. So this is one of those games where the Chiefs solely can win by 7 or more on their offense alone. And I do like the over 55.5 points in that game also, but I'm not convinced about it. So I'll keep that one off of locks of the week just because I can see the Chiefs defense coming out inspired. Maybe they win like 35-20 and it's just below. So Chiefs -6.5 at Washington. Then I'm going to ride the Bills. The Bills are a great team, Tom. So why not bet on them? -5.5 at the Titans. Bills have by far the highest scoring margin in the NFL. They have the most points scored, the least points allowed. All 4 wins this season have come by 18 or more points. They're great on the road. They're 2-0 on the road, beating the Chiefs by 18, the Dolphins by 35. Titans, they just don't look right now. I know they're 3-2, but they beat the Jets, Seahawks, or they lost to the Jets rather, and they beat the Seahawks, Jaguars, and Colts, who have combined for 3 wins among them. Their only good opponent, they lost by 25 against the Cardinals. So no one's going to stop Derrick Henry, But the Bills, the third best rush defense, and a team that's played great defense this season, has a chance to contain them. So I like the Bills by 6 or more in that one. And then tonight, I'm going to go with tonight. Dodgers, Giants, under 8 runs. The Dodgers had the best ERA in the regular season. The Giants, the second best. They're coming off a 1-0 game. The last game, I know Tom mentioned a 4-0 game earlier in the series. I just don't see a lot of runs being scored. And did the Dodgers, they announced their starter. They're going Walker Buehler on short rest. So Walker Buehler is an ace. Descofani for the Giants, also really good at 3.17 ERA. So I like under 8 runs in this one. And then this last one, I feel the least confident about, but I just have a feeling on it. I like the Dodgers -1.5 over the Giants at +135. So get yourself some money. The money line -160 is what I last saw. And I think it's -180 now, even now that they announced the starter. So money line's too juiced up. Give me the Dodgers by 2 or more. I said this earlier. They had almost the exact same record in the regular season. 1 more win for the Giants. 1 more win head-to-head. I just don't see this series not going 5 games. Also, the Dodgers had the best record at home in the regular season. I don't see them losing 2 straight home games. So I think the Dodgers definitely win tonight. It does worry me if they win by 1, but because I'm picking the Dodgers tonight, let's say by 2 or more, why not?
Well, I think there's some stat that only 30% of baseball games are decided by 1 run. So if you're going to pick a team to win, you actually stand a better chance of getting extra runs there.
Give me that plus money. Let's go Dodgers.
There you go. Not bad at all.
Do you guys have a sports trivia question?
I actually do this week. I was tooling around and looking one up. So this one is a little bit off the wall as far as trivia questions go. There is only one human mascot in all 4 major North American sports. Can you name the mascot? And if you can't name the mascot, can you at least name the team? And if you can't name the team, can you at least name the league in which there is one human mascot in all the major sports?
NFL, NBA, NHL, and baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta write it down. Let's see. NFL, MLB, NBA,
that's tough.
NHL.
Wow, because I'm normally the stats guy and I'm great at trivia. I'm blanking. I don't know,
man.
Can you give us a
give
clue?
me a moment? Give me a moment. Just give me a moment. I mean,
who's thinking?
Is this supposed to be controversial from the Cleveland side of the country? No. Okay.
I don't know.
So we'll narrow it down to the league. So it's in the NFL. It's one of the 32 NFL teams. Has a human mascot. And if you want another lifeline, I can give you the conference.
Could be the Cowboys, but
it's not the Cowboys.
I don't know. I guess I don't really go to NFL. I mean, what is a Raider?
NFC. It's not the Raiders.
The Vikings.
It is the Vikings. It's the correct team.
Yeah.
All right.
And then bonus points if you can name the mascot's name.
Well, isn't it the guy? He's like he's literally dressed up as a Viking, isn't he? Yeah.
One of the most famous Vikings.
Skull something?
No, that's the thing that they say when they drink. No, it's Ragnar. Ragnar the Viking.
Yes.
Very good.
I remember it because when you gave me, it took me a little time. I remembered it. Wow,
it's a difficult one because I think of
it's well done.
Like there's the Leprechaun guy for the Boston Celtics. I didn't know if he officially counted, but I looked it up and the only official named mascot, you have various Bulldogs in college ball or Longhorn Steers in Texas. Ragnar's the only official guy in pro sports.
Wow.
That's well. All right.
Drew's gonna go this view. He's gonna look up some stuff.
No, like I thought it was the Boston Celtics mascot too, but I don't know. I guess not officially. Whatever.
And this may be a dumb thing, but like the Denver Nuggets have a mascot named Rocky. Now it's not like a person. I guess it's some type of tiger of some sort, but
right.
Yeah.
And
Ragnar's the only like human being person. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Cool. Do you want my trivia, or should I save it for another time?
Let's save for another time because we might be a little lengthy in the statements.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, in that case, Tom, I'll let you get started with your statement. I'm going to get my charger because I'm down to 12% on my computer. So you give me a second. I'm going to get. Actually, you can start. I see my charger right here.
Okay.
Yeah, you can start. I see it right here.
Well, we would be remiss if we did not spend any time talking about the biggest story in all sports this week, and perhaps, depending on how things develop this year, Jon Gruden is out in Las Vegas as the Raiders head coach after several emails containing racist, misogynistic, and homophobic language were made public. Now, it's easy for me to sit here and declare that he shouldn't have been allowed to resign, that he actually should have been fired for cause. But that leads to a next larger issue. These emails were obtained during an NFL investigation into the Washington football team and Daniel Snyder's contact with his franchise. Gruden, chose to use language that he chose. He used the language that he chose because he felt enabled and or empowered to do so in these emails. This reveals a much larger and systemic issue within the NFL, that a person like Jon Gruden was able to speak and act like this over the entirety of his career without facing much pushback or any sort of consequences, as he was a head coach and then a broadcaster and then a head coach again. Another underrated takeaway from this deplorable mess, we now know exactly why the NFL was willing and even eager to settle with Colin Kaepernick. The communication content that would have come out in discovery, including an email in which Gruden says that defensive back Eric Reid should be fired, can hint towards a little bit of a collusion case on the NFL's part that they want nothing to deal with. And this continues to show the sport's ugliest warts to everybody in the public sphere. But hey, there is a saving grace for the NFL. The on-field product. Look at what Lamar Jackson did, an overtime win. Look at how the Bills stomped the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a shame that a person like Jon Gruden has been allowed to and empowered to succeed in the NFL. It's an ugly black eye, but unlike most sports, I think the NFL is just too big to fail, even on something that can be as insidious and deep-rooted as the surface-level emails appear to be. Fans will still be coming back and watching the NFL. I just feel a little bit more icky about cheering for the league going forward.
We don't have to cheer for the league, just cheer against Jon Gruden, and he's gone. For the record, I agree with everything you said about Gruden. It's interesting to see that, just the culture and the way things are now. It's like this, and it's crazy how that came out 10 years ago, but you got to be held responsible for your actions. So it's a good thing that it did. The other thing that was interesting about it is that Al Davis didn't immediately fire him. Like the Raiders, I think the NFL pressured them and they didn't do anything. So it's just interesting how the Raiders reacted to this. I mean, I think the writing was on the wall. He was going to go, and I think he saw that and he resigned himself. But this wasn't really a resignation. Like he was going to be gone.
He was politely allowed to resign, which is kind of like, it's just one of those things like I really hate, because football is so fun to watch, and yet we have such awful people who run the NFL. You have Daniel Snyder and the Washington football team and that scandal with the cheerleaders down in Puerto Rico and what they were forced to do for a lot of the big money donors. And now we have Jon Gruden, like you said, these emails are from 10 years ago and we're only hearing about them now because they're part of a discovery phase with the Washington football team. And if you really want to get into the conspiracy theory side of things, DeMaurice Smith, the head of the union, somebody toward whom Jon Gruden directed a derogatory, not slur, but he made a derogatory remark about his physical appearance. DeMaurice Smith might be on the way out as the players' representative in the collective bargaining agreement. The NFL likes working with him. They've been working with him for 12 years. They might be doing this as a little bit of a favor to him, saying, "Hey, we can help you save your job by showing how maligned you are for somebody who's been against you." So maybe we'll cut a little deal further on down the road. It's kind of unfortunate that instead of these emails being written 10 years ago and us knowing about them 10 years ago, it takes a situation like this for them to come out. So it just shows like a whole big problem. What else is the NFL sweeping underneath the rug? It's probably plenty. And because the league is so entertaining, we're not really going to walk away from it, are we?
Well, and I'll tell you this, unfortunately, Tom, and the NFL has its own issues, and they've got probably more examples than the average corporation, but it's rich businessmen running things, and it's not truly specific to just the NFL. I think there's a lot of disgusting things that a lot of our world leaders and people in positions of power do. So, I mean, again, like the owners are part of the NFL, but it's like they're rich people and they've got like, some of them are good people. Some of them are good people. Like there's good people, there's bad people. That's how life is. But it's amazing how things can get covered up. And it's amazing how John Gruden can just like say these things. And it's interesting, Kyle, like he's not going to get a job now in football because he also, and this is, I think what really put him over the top is he also said negative things about Roger Goodell. And you can't say that about the commissioner. And obviously, a lot of the stuff that he said that's racist, misogynistic, etc., homophobic, like I completely disagree with it. And it's horrible that he said it. And it's sad that a person like that believes those things. But I also think he's stupid. Why would he in writing question the NFL commissioner, put that out into the internet? Like it's just not very smart. So like they're just like, you know what I'm saying? He's not a compassionate, he's not a good person, but he's also really, really stupid to do it.
Well, I don't even necessarily know if it's stupidity. It's that he was in an environment where he felt comfortable enough to say so and was able to say so for literally at least a decade before this kind of came out. So, that could be another cynical thing. Maybe Roger Goodell finally catches wind of what John Gruden's been saying and decides, I'm going to leak all this different stuff because I don't want him to have a job because he said mean things about me. And like, that's the sort of thing that brings about the accountability, not necessarily the content
he's not getting
themselves.
A job as an announcer or a coach anymore.
No way.
But I will transition into my statement of the week.
Much happier, I hope.
Because, it's much happier. Well, I'm debating because I want to let Drew get his in, but mine sort of transitions in from yours.
Go ahead. I got nothing. Go ahead.
You got nothing, Drew? Oh, okay. Well, Drew has nothing, of course. My statement of the week is, as Tom sort of hinted at it in his statement, the NFL has never, ever, ever had as many great quarterbacks, in particular young quarterbacks, that it does now. It used to be that we had Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were in their own league, and then you had, Brett Favre at one point, then it was Rodgers who was up there with them, and you had Breeze who was considered another tier, and then obviously I think you had Big Ben, Eli, and Roethlisberger were up there, and then that was about it. Like you didn't have, the league wasn't like 15 quarterback deep the way it is now, and as good as like Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning were, I actually think this new generation, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, they're better. The NFL has never been in a position to market its players and have more great players at the quarterback position that are all so young. Like Tom Brady, like a legend of the game, is going to retire soon. Rodgers, probably not that far from retirement. There's some question marks about how much does he want to play the game. Russell Wilson, also a little bit older. We just had Drew Brees retire last year. And you know what? It doesn't matter because we have Patrick Mahomes, we have Josh Allen, we have Justin Herbert, we have Kyler Murray, we have Lamar Jackson, we have Joe Burrow, we have Dak Prescott. And these are about like 10 guys who are really proven NFL players already early in their career. With the modern medicine, we might see all these guys for the next 15 years. And then you have a whole nother host of guys who are talented. I don't know what's going to happen. Even if they don't hit, the NFL's in great shape. But imagine if Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, if any of these guys, Mac Jones, even remotely live up to the hype. Unbelievable. Russell Wilson, by the way, still has a while to go. Matthew Stafford still has a while to go. Aaron Rodgers conceivably could still play a while. Like, it's unbelievable how much quarterback talent there is in the NFL right now. The NFL's never been in this good of a shape. They've normally had 3 or 4 guys who are the faces of the league. And Patrick Mahomes, I think, is going to become the face. But I think they're going to have a better core of secondary talented players than they've ever had, specifically at the quarterback position, which is what we know the NFL loves. It's unbelievable how lucky the league is with all these young, talented players. Unbelievable.
Man, well, it's a testament to kind of going to even the high school model of who's the quarterback on your team, the most talented overall athlete. And you look at the rise in that same fashion, maybe moving away from the proverbial quarterback camp. I think that was a bit of a fad of, let's hone players to be specifically quarterbacks. And you look at Kyler Murray, he was a bona fide, first round draft pick, I think, for the Oakland Athletics. You have Russell Wilson, baseball player. I think
Patrick Mahomes early in his college too.
Exactly. Multi-sport athletes, I think, are going to be making a comeback because we're finding that that's actually healthier and that's actually better for overall athletic development. And then, you put those best athletes at the most important position. I think we're going to continue to see a rise with great young quarterbacks coming into the league going forward. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
And this is what I said. Those guys are better overall players because nowadays, as a quarterback, you're expected to be able to throw the ball, but you're also expected to be able to be a fast runner, a strong quarterback. So these quarterbacks, are training to be able to pass and run. Mm-hmm. And they're essentially, like I said earlier in the show, like a guy like Josh Allen or a Kyler Murray, they're legitimately a dual threat where they're great at passing and running. They're not more of like a Michael Vick, who's mostly a runner but can pass. It's guys who can pass and run. And it's remarkable to see, and I'm looking forward to it. There's more parity in the NFL now than ever. There's just going to be so many good games. It's going to be so much fun. And just imagine the playoffs. Like, if you look at, like, who's going to be in the playoffs, like, you look at some of the quarterback names. Like, we're going to have Josh Allen. We're going to have probably Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Ryan Tannehill, okay, maybe not as big of a name, but still a very good player. Those are some insane names in the AFC. Then in the NFC, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Kyler Murray. Like, it's just like every playoff game is going to have like an insane quarterback showdown in both conferences. It's just phenomenal to see. I'm just wildly excited by it. That's about it. I don't know. Drew, do you have anything to add? No? All right. We'll call it a night. Next week, we'll do NBA playoff preview, season preview. We'll try to keep it to a few less NFL topics, but a great show today, guys, and have a great night.